This is Dima, your host. Welcome to part 2 of our Bridge Builders Real Talk podcast here at Victory Community Church. Over a couple of days, we've been talking about the theme, Live His Life, Do His Work. Last time we were on the video, we're talking about the struggle of identity. Today, we are looking at a topic still in line of the theme. We're looking at a topic titled Dealing with Temptation, Resisting Temptation When Willpower Won't Work. Temptation is all around us. Even Christ was tempted to sin by the devil on many occasions, even at the point of death. Temptation is a challenge that each person faces throughout their lives. As humans, we are tempted to sin and we are easily influenced to disobey God or succumb to the desires of the flesh. People often find themselves blaming God or situations or even the devil when they are tempted or when they succumb to temptation. Some even go as far as denying ungodliness. We find that sometimes humans also become addicts to sin or even sinful desires after engaging in recurring temptation. Why do people struggle with blaming God when they are tempted? And what can we do to resist sin as humans when willpower, which is the flesh, fails us? That is what we're going to be talking today on the Bridge Builders Real Talk. Before we get started with some questions, I have another bridge builder here in today's video segment. I will give her the platform to introduce herself. She's on my left and she's also well learned. She's gone through education. She's had life experiences dealing with temptation, I'm sure, and that's why she's on the show. And we also have Victor, who's going to introduce himself shortly, and another special guest. So we'll start with my guest on my very left. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nena Alenia, and I'm a part of the Bridge Builders group.
Thank you, Nena. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, my name is Victor. I'm also a part of the Bridge Builders group, and I'm excited to be here today again.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again, Victor. We're so glad to have you on the last segment.
And then my name is Rudy Farinas, and I'm also very excited to be here as well.
Thank you, Rudy, for joining us today. I'm so glad to have you guys sit down with me and discuss about this very crucial topic, temptation. So before I start, can you guys tell me how many times you've been tempted in the last 5 days? In the last 5 days, how many times have you been tempted? Or what tempted you?
Well, for me, it's probably the last couple of hours, but my biggest temptation is definitely food. I have a really big sweet tooth, like chocolate, cake, ice cream. That's my go-to. So that's a major temptation. I'm trying to take a step back and not eat so much sugar, but if I see ice cream, it's not going to be there. So
who doesn't like good food, right? Who doesn't like something sweet? Nice.
A bowl of fufu right now will go crazy.
Bowl of fufu. Wow. For our viewers who are in African, fufu is like, how do we describe it? Like mashed potato, but more stiff than that. Yeah, like bread. Yeah. In between bread and mashed potatoes.
And we have this soup that goes with it.
Oh, so yummy.
Go crazy.
Juicy. Okay. Yes.
To be honest, in the past 5 days, I think you guys probably can relate, but you're probably tempted every single day from the first moment waking up from their alarm. Do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it?
Right.
Same thing at the end of the night when you want to snack on something that you shouldn't have. Back to food. Every single day you're tempted with a little something.
Yes, I've also had that struggle too with eating late at night, right?
Exactly.
Like you're gonna get fat. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So So thank you guys for that. So so now back to the topic. Why is it that some people display more self-control than others? Do you think more people display more self-control than other people, or do you think that people just are tempted the exact same way, or fall the exact same way as every other person will?
I think it all begins with at least that person's mindset, because everybody's liable to be tempted and give in to that temptation, but you also have to be strong-willed because you're on a journey normally if you're being tempted or something is tempting you. So me and maybe Victor, if we're on the same journey, I might be a little less determined to not lead into temptation than maybe Victor is, because he's been on the journey a little bit longer. He's been on his diet journey a little bit longer than I have. So you know what? I will give into the bag of chips. But Victor, he's seen the results already.
So he knows how to withdraw better. Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
I definitely agree with him. I think we have different temptations and at different times. We're all different human beings. So the temptations, that we might have some similarities, with the decisions in the mornings, but our temptations sometimes are tailored to who we are already. The things that we experience in life, they're different. So we're going to obviously, I think, have those different temptations at different times. Like he mentioned, there's some things he can resiliently just be like, no. And some things that at the same time I'll be like, this is hard for me. As Nana has mentioned, she's a sweet tooth, so she might be tempted to eat candy. But if I'm not, and there's candy in front of me, I don't have the same
level of temptation.
Level of temptation. So it varies between human beings. It's just kind of like he mentioned earlier. It's kind of where your head's at and how you deal with that temptation and at what time you deal with it too. Because early in the morning temptation and late at night temptation are a little different. Because early in the morning you might have a little bit more energy to say no, but at night when you're tired, it might be more difficult. So,
and I also want to add to what he said. Sometimes for people, like their temptation varies, maybe based on who they're around. Because for me, like I might, like if I for the sweet tooth thing, sometimes I might be like, all right, I'm not going to eat any sweets today. I'm going to be a good girl, have my veggies and stuff. But then when I go to work, it's someone's birthday or someone's leaving, and so now they have a dozen donuts, and then there's also cake in the break room, and don't forget that there's cookies there too. And now it's like that temptation that I was resisting in the morning. Now I'm at work with all these other people. Everyone's like, do you want one? Do you want one? No. Well, maybe that one. And now I eat the whole box by myself. So that's the thing. It's really
so
bad.
Definitely people can play a role in, how you succumb to temptation, how you are able to withdraw from certain things that might want to put you in the line of temptation. So drawing from that, I know that we all struggle with, thoughts of guilt, right? You think of, bad thoughts that pester, or persist for a long time. When do you think that temptation actually becomes sin as an individual? Just,
Go.
I think it becomes sin when you're knowingly making action, because sometimes things are done out of ignorance. You make certain decisions out of ignorance. As a child, you might make a decision and then you get informed after by your parents like that is wrong. I didn't know it was wrong. I think as we kind of grow and learn, that's when knowingly making actions, when we do know the word and we do know what we're expected to do by God and in His word on this earth, and we still succumb to temptation and still choose the things that we're tested by. That's when I believe it becomes sin.
Okay.
I think it becomes a sin when, because obviously God has already pre-programmed a lot of us to want to just act in the right way, do the right thing every single time. But when, if you weigh your consequences to what's going on, because some temptations aren't the same weight, Maybe I do want to have the bag of chips and it's okay. So I don't think that's necessarily a sin. But, maybe I do end up stealing that bag of money from right there because it's just sitting in the middle of the ground. If I decide to take it, you shouldn't have taken it. That's a sin. But if you just let it be, walk away.
What if you didn't know that it was a sin? What if I just found a bag of money, right? Yay, my luck, right? I'm taking it to help me out. Is it necessarily a sin if I don't think it's a sin? If I think it's doing me a favor, is that really sin? Is that really
I think that's where it kind of stands of like, what's your knowledge on it? Like, because if you never have learned it's a sin, is it like it technically is a sin, but if you've never like seen it in the perspective of God, this is right or this is wrong,
right.
or this, you don't have that moral compass of black and white.
Okay.
You're kind of in a situation where it's like maybe it's not a sin to you because you don't know. But when you know, I think that knowledge aspect has such a great impact on it of like, I know this is wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
And another thing I was thinking about too is that when it becomes a sin, it's when that temptation, I think, just takes control over you, where you really can't help it, where, okay, you're tempted by it, but then you start to lose that discipline to like stay away from something where, I can't think of an example right now, but it's just to where your flesh is so consumed by that temptation that you can't stop yourself. So maybe, your parents tell you don't go for that thing and you take from it. And then you never have that discipline, you never have that conviction to stop. And now that petty thing becomes crime, and it just it starts small, but it keeps building up. And when you don't have that stopping point, it escalates to the point of no return. And then it's like, God help you at that point. So
right.
that's what I would say.
You're on.
When you're on your own.
And I think, because like some things might originally not start out as sin, but that consumption part is very important too, because you begin to idolize it.
Right.
And when you idolize something, it takes away from, really, kind of focusing on things that matter with God. You're so consumed by one thing, and, there's so much you can put your energy towards. So if you're so consumed by one thing, and instead of, God, in a way you're sinning in that way because your focus is not on him.
Right. Now you guys mentioned God, right? God steers you in the right direction, right? But there's a scripture that says, there's no temptation known to man that, God, God will not, something about God will not see you through it, because temptation, every man has experienced temptation at their life. So, and then you find that sometimes people say things like, oh, God puts temptation in my path for this, or Satan's attack was the reason why I sin. Why is it that people are quick to blame God when they, fall into temptation or when they are tempted?
I would say that's an accountability thing. It's easier to blame someone else than to just look at yourself and change. It's hard to change. It's hard to, the thing about temptation, like you said, when it starts, you start. It's hard to stop. It's easier to blame someone else than to actually make a change. It was easy to change, everyone will. This world is really difficult to live and kind of battle temptation at the same time, because especially in a place where it's all around us.
So you're saying that it's a notion that people make, or is an excuse that people make to guys why they fall into temptation.
Yeah, because you can say it might not even be a sin like the donut thing, right? You go in, you can beat yourself up and be like, man, I need to do better. Or you can be like, it's their fault for putting a donut to my presence.
Right.
But how do they know what journey you're on?
Exactly.
How do they know what goals you made? Kind of thing. So it's easier just to blame someone else than to actually look within and really, really make a change. It's difficult to change. It's difficult to beat temptation. And that's why, as mentioned in the earlier conversations we've had, it's important for us to kind of lean into that identity aspect of God, because he will see us through and it will help us persevere.
Right, exactly. And then kind of going more into that too, it's like when people are wanting to blame God for these things, it's that temptation, it's always going to be there. But I think the thing that people forget to do or just don't want to do is that they don't want to put their trust in God first, and then maybe whatever they're tempted with, bring it up to God and say, this is what I'm dealing with. This is the temptation that I'm fighting. God, I'm asking you to help guide me through that. And so then they either don't do that or they just want to find another excuse. And so then it's going to be blaming the people around them, or worse, blaming God and saying, no, you did this to me. I'm like, God, no, it's you not taking accountability. Accountability. And that comes in the form of prayer. It comes in the form of confessing your sins and then doing the work to then stay by that, and then trying to be, and then like the earlier episode was that, you want to make sure identity aligns with that too. So all these things go into it, but I think it really boils down to the accountability for sure.
Okay.
No, definitely. I would only add to that accountability, because nobody ever likes to blame themselves.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants them to put it on their own
Very
shoulders.
important.
The feel of guilt is really, it feels terrible. So, rather than feeling it, I can just divert that onto someone, or in the case, God.
Do you think that God places us in a space of temptation to get tempted. Yes,
I would say so.
Okay.
I mean, I think, when you feel guilty, that's part of your consequences. You don't want to feel guilty. Nobody ever wants to feel guilty on anything, but you gave into temptation somewhere, so there has to be some sort of consequence for it. And with every sort of temptation, there's going to be a consequence for everything. If I decide to give in and drink all of these beers tonight, I will have to deal with it in the morning.
Right,
And
exactly.
I shouldn't have been so tempted and gave in to temptation.
So you think that God will deliberately put you in a place, like in a bar, right? For like, oh, Rudy, I'm gonna give you friends that you're gonna take you to the bar, you're gonna drink yourself, but you should know better.
It's happy hour. There's deals on drinks. Why would I not have a couple?
Right.
Because the consequences.
I do think to a certain extent, at this point, I don't think God is deliberately putting us through temptation because there's a lot of temptation out there. I don't think we're all Job. I don't think he's putting us in this catastrophic. I think a lot of it also has to do with kind of personal choice. Some things you can't really change. You can't really place yourself in certain situations. But I don't think he's like, I'm going to put this man right here. Of course, like I do believe everything happens for a reason. But I don't think he's like, I really want to test his faith right now. I just think, just all around us, that's that temptation. Because, like I said, temptation also varies on who it is. So I can be in a bar and not get tempted at all, So it kind of varies, on who that person is. And what temptation is subjective to who.
Choosing to avoid temptation, is it a greater display of willpower than physically removing the choice to be tempted? Like, for instance, I choose that I won't take that sugary biscuit, right? Even if it's like right in front of me, I am not going to do it because I am on this journey and I'm going to stick with it. Is it better than actually taking it away from that situation or from that place where you won't be tempted? Which one is better? Is that a greater display of willpower? Is that you showing that you are stronger, by desisting from it, or you are stronger by removing it from where you would normally be tempted in the first place?
I think if whatever the temptation was and it has to be physically removed or it has to be removed from you, I think it's a bigger issue. So then I think if you're able to look at it, realize I don't want it, need it, it's there, and it's cool, it's for somebody else's, decision, cool. That's definitely showing way more willpower.
Yeah. It's showing more willpower by taking it out of the picture?
No, he's saying it's saying more.
If you're able to resist it,
it's right in front of you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
because it's like it's very easy when something is not in front of you to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But when that thing is in front of you, are you going to keep that same energy and do that?
Because you can, going back to the donut example, clean your whole entire fridge, your pantry, but then that doesn't necessarily mean that you're necessarily equipped for when it's in front of you,
right?
Because you didn't build the willpower, rather you just avoided it, right?
Exactly.
So when it's in your face, what happens then?
But isn't that a step in building your willpower? If you take it away from you seeing it, is that not like step one of building a strong will or desire not to be tempted?
I see where you're coming from because you want to surround yourself around the things that you want. I get that. But on the subject of willpower itself, we don't know that unless that is in front of you.
Okay.
Like you won't know because, in a situation where I just don't have it around me, I can, you can say, yeah, I'm doing good, but in the case of when it's around me, what happens then?
Right.
So that's the first step, but you're, just like building muscle, in the case of it happens, are you able to lift it up? Probably not.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
You're always in every spotter right there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So are there any, benefits from being tempted as a person?
I definitely think there can be some benefits. One of the main ones being you're getting some sort of test from the situation. So you're going to learn from if you give in to temptation, you'll learn from whatever consequence is going to come from that, hopefully. If not, you'll just keep leading into temptation, and then who knows where that goes.
Right.
Now, if you opt away from whatever it is that is tempting you, I think there's a massive lesson to be learned there because you showed yourself the willpower to stop. You gave yourself the strength and said, hey, I don't need it. So definitely learning a lesson from giving into a temptation. You can learn something from there. And if you do decide to just opt away from whatever's tempting you, obviously you're getting a massive gain to yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's like almost the opposite of guilt, when you resist temptation that, that's in front of you. It's kind of like that satisfaction within yourself. You're happy that you were able to resist it because you know that it was hard to make that decision. And for you to make that decision, you're going to be happy within your, who you are, kind of thing. And so I definitely agree with that. I would say that's the great benefit of it. Naturally, I would be like, no, there's no benefit of being tempted because it's kind of like,
right.
it's just easier for it not to be around, But there is that gain of, being able to persevere through it. So,
Okay. Okay. Do you have any contributions, Nana?
No, they took what I said.
They took what you said. Perfect.
Sorry.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you can just to wrap up the video, what are some temptations that you're currently struggling with, and what are some strategies that you've done or you've used to fight off those temptations or overcome those temptations? Not using the cupcake story, something different. Okay, something that maybe viewers from home, youths like you can relate to, that could potentially help them, right? Whether in school, in their relationships, picking the right partner, picking the right kind of job, making decisions. Am I going to make this decision because it's going to give me a short-term benefit, or, make this decision even though it's going to take a while for me to get to the end result, but it's worth holding on to, at the end of the day. So if you guys can share your thoughts on, some of the temptations that you've had or you've experienced and what you've done to overcome those temptations.
I could definitely say one persisting temptation that is always there is procrastination.
Okay.
Procrastination in work and procrastination in life, because it is always funner to just scroll on your phone and hang out and listen to some music, but things got to get done.
Right.
So, when you're tempted to just hang out and do nothing, or, I could scroll through a little bit more Twitter while you're at work. Well, guess what? Nothing is getting done.
Right.
Nothing is
exactly.
done.
You're just
you'll have to
you're just like holding off, productivity. Yeah.
Yeah. Way I always, at least lately, I've been trying to figure it out is really, okay, if you want to hang out, give yourself a 3-minute, 2-minute little break. And all right, this 2 to 5 minutes is for you. When the clock hits, the next 5 or the next 0,
right.
then you have to get back at it for the next 45 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I do give into that temptation, nothing will get done. Whether it's at work, whether that's at home, building a nursery.
Right.
Things are taking a lot longer than they should have taken.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
That's one, I would say. But
okay. Yeah. That's a very good one. Okay.
So, I think for me, in terms of like just kind of relationships around, just the temptation of spending time with the people you want to, rather than doing the things that you feel like you need to. It's hard. It's like he mentioned, it's easier to just kind of do the easier thing, the more fun thing, of, being around the people you want to, rather than, maybe sometimes studying, maybe sometimes, participating in something that you should be participating. Like, it could potentially be, you said you were going to go to this night vigil, but instead you want to go hang out with your friends
right
at an evening bar. So it's just like it's kind of like that temptation of
Is it necessarily a temptation, or you just making a choice?
Well, it is a temptation, because when you get raised the wager of come here, but you need to be here, that's temptation, because it's kind of like, it's just kind of like, this is exciting, but this is going to grow morally, And it's just so much, like, that's the world, kind of thing. Kind of dealing with that a lot for me, of just choosing not sometimes. Well, I should Most times choosing the things that need to be done rather than choosing the things that I want to do.
Right.
You know, which is hang out with my friends, and laugh, and
life is short.
You know, life is short, but at the same time, there's things that need to be done, as mentioned by Mr. Rudy here. So
setting those priorities, going to church, spending more time in the presence of God.
It's very important to grow.
It's very important
grow
for
that
your
resilience
growth.
And have the tools
to
be able to persevere through some temptations.
To resist temptation, absolutely. Because in the presence of brethren, right, there's...
When you're surrounded by people who also are looking for the same tools, it gives you that extra support.
It equips you.
So it's very important.
Keeps you in check.
To, continue to surround yourself around those people rather than, the things that will tempt you, because you might lose a little bit of that, your focus, and those tools given to you in the church. So it's very important to make the better choice.
Right, Nana?
For me, it will definitely be multitasking. One issue I have is I feel like I have a bit of ADHD. I take on so many things, and then nothing ever gets done. Oh, here's this and this and this, and oh, what about that? And so I keep taking on all these things, but then the things I need to do never gets done or gets neglected. So that's something I'm working on, is just focusing on one thing.
Is that necessarily a temptation? Because I mean, I don't know if I should be offended, because I have OCD issues too.
I feel like it's a form of temptation. It's probably a form of temptation in that, what I know what I need to focus on is that here's this nagging feeling of, what about this? What about this? Or that's the temptation of no, but this thing that's right here in my face that has a deadline. Priority, but oh, that sounds kind of interesting. Let me just abandon this because this thing is interesting. So for me, it's a form of temptation, but I'm learning to I'll write it down. I'll come back to it maybe in a few weeks or a few months, but I know this thing that's right here has to get done. So I'm working on multitasking less and just focus on monotasking. Do one thing at a time and then come back and go down the list versus doing all at the same time, but nothing ever gets done.
Right. Yeah. Right. For me, I think my own temptation is shoot. Do I even have it? I guess I have a temptation, but
controlling the minor things in life.
Okay.
Could potentially be.
I guess. I don't know. I guess he knows me better than I do. So, there you have it, viewers. Thank you so much for joining us on this special Bridge Builders Week. We hope you love the conversation that we've had so far. If you want to participate in the conversation, you can leave us a comment, subscribe, follow the conversation, and we're grateful for following us on this journey. Until next time, see you. God bless.